Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. So the crisis at the southern border continues to get worse as northern cities throughout the country, sanctuary cities that don't want to be sanctuary cities anymore, beg the Biden administration for help.
Joining us now for more is veteran of the Army's military police and retired supervisor border patrol agent Frank Lopez Jr. and Republican New York City Councilman Joe Borelli. Frank, we keep seeing these photos coming from the southern border. Some just came from Eagle Pass. The problem is really bad, and it's getting worse because what will likely happen is an influx of crowds and crowds of people is going to come into our border again. They're going to be shipped off to these sanctuary cities. We just saw that a 95-year-old veteran was kicked out of a nursing home that was sold behind closed doors to make room for migrant housing. How can America stop this?
Well, so very few precious veterans are being considered in all of this, and actually they're being disregarded. But what we must do is return back to Operation Streamline, which dealt consequences, jail time to illegal aliens, and expedited removals to where illegal aliens who entered the country at a certain time and distance within a time frame were returned to Mexico, and if they returned to the United States, they were then charged with a prior deportation, so they would serve more jail time. So there has to be consequences. Until that point, they're just going to keep coming across because of all the magnets drawing them in. Yeah. They're still in place.
And this was a topic last night during the debate. Ron DeSantis said that he would end remain in Mexico, and that birthright citizenship would end under a potential DeSantis administration, and that he would complete building the wall. So these issues that were taboo at once, Joe, are now mainstream. They're talking about this at Republican debates. According to the New York Post, so you're on the city council in New York City, one of the few Republicans. According to the Post, the city is preparing to spend, this number is just unbelievable, $1 billion over the next couple of years to shelter these migrants in city hotels. At what point, Joe, is Joe Biden running out of time to fix the problem before he faces voters in a year?
Well, I think we're seeing the collapse of this crisis in New York, where the train has finally come off the tracks. I think next to go will be Chicago. Chicago is going to have a migrant crisis, and unfortunately, their budget is about 90% smaller than the budget of New York City. So it's unclear how they can even absorb the billions of dollars that'll be necessary to spend on this population. But that $1 billion, that's just on 3 hotels for 3 years. In the next fiscal year, we're going to spend about $6 billion, which is roughly the equivalent of the entire budget of Mississippi. And more to the point, it's the entire budget of Phoenix, Arizona. So us, the largest city in America, could pay for our own budget, as well as the budget for the 5th largest city in America for what we're paying this migrant crisis.
Joe, just a quick follow-up. Is this the end of sanctuary cities as we know it?
Yeah, I don't see a pathway forward how any elected official on the Democratic side can somehow try to justify this policy as being effective. It just isn't. We tried it. It was an experiment. It failed.
Senate Republicans, they held a press conference on the crisis at the southern border yesterday. I want you guys to listen to what they had to say.
Democrats say we have no solutions. I guarantee you, if you take a look at this group up here, we have put forth solution after solution after solution. You look at the number of people that have died at the border because Joe Biden has made it more and more enticing to come here. Make no mistake, this is a result of failed policies. Guys, that's not the American dream. That's an American nightmare.
Wow.
Clearly very emotional. I think that something that's definitely misconstrued and put forth in other types of media is that Republicans just are heartless and don't want these people to come here. That's not the case at all. It's that we want people to come here safely and on the right terms and legally. Frank, is this what Joe Biden wants?
Yeah, of course, Joe Biden wants this. It's part of their, it's part of a larger globalist agenda. But look, it's easy to bash Biden. Here in Texas, Governor Abbott is hurting other Americans by shipping these people into the interior. We say scoop them up, gather them up, and take them to the border and tell them you're not going to trespass on Texas. And our Congressman, Tony Gonzalez, is in bed with the non-government organizations and Republican best friends with the people who are running the biggest NGO in Eagle Pass, Texas, at the epicenter. Just yesterday, he voted against Department of Defense funding for this woke ideology, and he voted for it. He voted against the amendment by Chip Roy. It is a uniparty problem here, and until the American people let it be known that we do not consent to being governed this way. They get our authority. They get their authority from us. And so, look, we've got to say like it is. We have Republicans that are doing all the talking, but like Tony Gonzalez in Congressional District 23, largest district on the U.S.-Mexico border, he has been in bed with them day one, refused to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. He fought against the Freedom Caucus because of supposedly they would eradicate amnesty. Yeah. He is a problem. And so you've got to call it like it is. And the media needs to realize and
Frank, let me give Joe, and Tony Gonzalez, voters will decide his fate November 2024. But the buck stops at the White House. Joe Biden could end this if he wanted to. Stroke of a pen, he could do it this morning. The buck ultimately stops at the White House. This problem didn't exist, certainly like we're seeing it right now during the Trump years. Joe, 20 seconds if you want to respond.
No, it didn't exist like this in the Trump years. Certainly, it didn't exist like this, by the way, in the Obama years or in the second Bush years. It was only when in 2021 in January that President Biden changed Customs and Border Patrol policies, ended Remain in Mexico, and said we're a sanctuary country. Essentially, that's what was the cause of our latest crisis that's now affecting New York and other large cities.
Yeah, unbelievable. Frank Lopez Jr., New York City Councilman Joe Borelli, thanks so much for being with us this morning and breaking that down. We will continue to cover this story. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.